If you're listening to this show, you know there's a course inside you. You already have your skills, your story, your mission, your experience, the proof that you can help people. What you really need is a plan and somebody to help you be accountable. That's what the STEP program gives you. This May, I'm accepting a limited number of applicants into my 6-month coaching cohort. Visit coursecreationstudio.com or email me, james@coursecreationstudio.com to apply. Space is limited, but I'd love to help you put your mission in motion.
As in, who is the buyer? What is the brand? Who's the seller? What is the brand? And then there is the process of coming to the sale, so the path. And those became kind of the 3 levers of this modality: the obvious offer, the resonant identity, and the intuitive path. Are you selling what they really want to buy, or are they compromising?
Hi, friend. Welcome to the Scaling Therapy Practice. I'm James Marland, your course creation coach. I'm here to help therapists who want to scale their reach with effective online courses. I'll share with you all the tools, tips, and technology I've learned along the way that will help you put your mission in motion. Hello, friend, and welcome back to the Scaling Therapy Practice. This is James Marland. This is the show where we help mission-driven leaders launch life-changing online courses. Today, I have a very special guest, Danny Iny from Mirasee and the Mirasee Company, the Mirasee Podcast, and Danny, and the book, Effortless, which is kind of one of the big things we're going to talk about. You got your book there? Yeah. Yeah, I like the book so much that I got the audio version and I bought the physical version because I wanted to take notes in it and highlight things and just have it with me. So Danny, welcome to the show.
James, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. So before we get into some of the elements of Effortless, this is my introduction for Danny. I went to a mastermind that he hosted in Canada, and I was a little bit skeptical of, is this going to be worth my time? I mean, what am I going to learn by listening to a bunch of other people's problems and spending, I had to drive there and then spend a couple of days, and what was I really going to get out of it? So I was kind of skeptical, but I was just really blown away by the advice that was there, the quality of people who were there, the speakers, and the other mastermind leaders that were there. It was perfect, and I really came away from it just energized and ready to take on more. So Danny, thanks for that. That's my introduction to you thanks for that mastermind.
Well, thank you for the very gracious introduction. It was wonderful having you there. And let's get into it.
Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Effortless book. The whole title is Effortless, the counterintuitive business growth formula for coaches, consultants, authors, speakers, and experts. And so you explained a little bit in the book, but why did you write this book? What led you to writing the book Effortless?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for a long time. I've been building this business for going on something like 15 years. And I experienced a lot of success right out of the gate. Like in the first 5 years, we kind of went from 0 to multiple millions in revenue. It just felt like everything was up and to the right. And then we hit a plateau, and we kind of stayed stuck at this almost $4 million a year mark for several years. And it just felt like treading water, and it was really frustrating. And so what I did was I really reflected on, well, what was different? What felt different in the early years versus these later years? And I was able to develop this framework that kind of gave me a sense of, okay, I think I understand what the big levers are. And then I started applying that framework, and my business exploded. We tripled the size of the business in a matter of years. And I, at the same time, was applying the same framework with my clients and with my students, and they were seeing similar growth and acceleration. I was like, you know what? I think there's something here. So I should write it down. And I did that partially because I wanted to share it, and partially because the act of writing something down kind of clarifies your thinking and helps you fill in the gaps in your own understanding. So I wanted to basically turn this thing that I had sketched on the back of a napkin for myself into something that could help a lot more people.
Yeah, and you said you wrote it for yourself and your students and your clients. Like, who are those people? Like, who are the people that you were beside yourself? Who are those people that you wrote the book for?
Yeah. So, I mean, really, I think this is a framework that applies to any kind of business, but specifically the people that I tend to work with are coaches, consultants, creators, expertise-based entrepreneurs.
Great. Now you said something that like my mind keyed in. You're like, there's levers to pull. Like, there's things you can like do to make your business run better and smoother. And you outline them in the book. So what are those three levers? And can you give us a high level view of what those three are?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of this kind of reverse engineers to an idea that I first picked up from Jeffrey Gitomer, who's an expert on sales. And he has this line where he says, people hate being sold to, but they love to buy. And it's one of those lines that's really powerful because it intuitively rings true, right? We all kind of relate to it. It resonates. But then it makes you kind of stop and think. It's like, okay, but then what's the difference exactly between being sold and buying? And the big difference is about getting what you want versus settling in some way. So the way I kind of,
Can you
yeah,
flesh getting what you want besides settling? That resonates with me. Do you have an example of that?
yeah, absolutely. So this is actually an example I share in the book. So I'm an early morning riser. Every morning I go for a walk around 6 a.m. And for a long time, I would pass by a Starbucks and I would get there just as it opened and I would get my tea and I would keep going. And I don't do that anymore precisely because I was not really getting what I wanted. I was settling. So I
Mm,
would go there and I would order. And what I would order was an Earl Grey tea with oat milk. Now, the thing is, I didn't really want an Earl Grey tea, nor did I want oat milk. What I wanted was a rooibos tea, which they do not have. And what I wanted with it was macadamia milk, which they also do not have. Now, they never knew that I was not ordering what I want because, they never asked, I never shared. And the general expectation is you go to a store and you order, off of the menu, off of the things that they have available. And I was compromising because I wanted to get a tea on my walk. But at some point I was like, you know what, this isn't really what I want. I'll just make my tea at home and take it with me. And I stopped going. That's the difference, right? Going somewhere and getting exactly the product, service, and also buying experience that you want versus are you compromising in some way? Right? The worst words in the English language to make the difference between buying and being sold is, I'm sorry, we can't do that, but let me tell you why you should want this instead, or why this instead is good enough.
that you're selling to people then. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. And you feel either a little disappointed or even taken advantage of if it's not what they promised.
Well, and maybe it is, maybe they're giving you exactly what they promised, but there's just a misalignment between
Yeah.
what they're promising and what you want. So it's not, nefarious. It's not like
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
necessarily being taken advantage of. It's
Right.
just that, you're not getting what you actually want. And what you actually want comes down to three things. There is the offer, like the actual thing that you're buying, the product or the service. There is the person you're buying it from, right? As in who is the buyer, what is the brand, who's the seller, what is the brand? And then there is the process of coming to the sale. So the path. And
Mm.
those became kind of the three levers of this modality, the obvious offer, the resonant identity, and the intuitive path. Are you selling what they really want to buy, or are they compromising? Are you who they really want to buy from, or are they compromising? And are you selling in a way that creates a really smooth and intuitive experience for them, or does it feel clunky and jarring? And again, they're settling
Mm.
to make it work because they don't have an alternative. right? If you don't have what I call an obvious offer and a resonant identity and an intuitive path, it doesn't mean nobody's ever going to buy from you. It just means there's more friction in the way. It's not effortless for them, and that means it's not effortless for you. And all kinds of growth become harder.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just pull on those until you give people exactly what they want, how they want to do it, and who they want it from.
I mean, that is a lot of what it comes down to, but it also works as so you can use this process in a few ways. First of all, it's a diagnostic tool, right? If I'm
Hmm.
not seeing the growth that I want, if everything feels just harder than I'd like it to, well, where's the weak link? Is it that I'm not really selling what people want to buy? Is it that I'm not really who they want to buy from? Or is it that the sales and marketing process is awkward and clunky? So I can kind of find, okay, where's the biggest area of opportunity? And then inside the book, we unpack, well, how do you make it smoother? And how do you create a better offer, identity, experience, et cetera?
So let's dive a little deeper on one of the levers there. How about the obvious offer? Um, you told a story in the chapter on the obvious offer about the Amazon and some of their strategy.
Yeah, sure. It's a really powerful anecdote. So this was from an interview that Jeff Bezos did years and years ago with a journalist. And the journalist was asking him something like, what's the hot new trend that's taking a lot of your mind space? And Bezos's answer was very telling. He said, I actually don't spend a lot of my time thinking about what is changing. I spend most of my time thinking about what is always going to stay the same. And the journalist says, well, what do you mean? And so Bezos says, well, look, let's imagine 5, 10 years in the future. I can't imagine it's ever going to happen that someone's going to call me up and say, Jeff, I love Amazon. I love it. I wish you had less products. That's not going to happen. People are always going to want more selection. They're never going to say, Jeff, I love Amazon. I wish the prices were higher. Never going to happen. People are always going to want low prices. And they're never going to say, Jeff, I love Amazon. I wish it took longer for things to get to my house. They're always going to want faster delivery. So those are kind of the three things that are always going to stay the same. People are going to want more and better selection, lower prices, and faster delivery. And we spend most of our time making sure that we are leaning into catering to those three things that are never going to change. And in a lot of ways, it's instructive. This is what we all need to do. Like, stop thinking about what's the hot trend, and is it this week? Is it about AI, or is it about bots, or is it about this or that? Marketing tactic. No, fundamentally, what is it that people really want from you? And this is actually an idea that I've elaborated over the last year in my Catalyst framework for developing super high value offers that I know that, we've got some cool things coming up about that. And you're going to tell your folks, and they'll have an invitation to come and see firsthand some of that stuff. But it really all comes down to creating something that people really want to buy.
The thing you really want to buy, if it really resonates with you, it glows. Like it's not just a little bit different than everything else on the shelf. It's like it sings to you and you're like, oh, this is exactly what I want. And I know in the book you had some exercises on y how to do that. I think the three I picked out was the perfect world guarantee, three wishes, and 11 11 star experience 10 times more obvious. Those are some of the like, if you're struggling with this, those are some of the things that you could do. Can you pick one of them and explain, one of the one of the diagnostic tools to help you pick out an offer that is um exactly what people want?
Yeah, sure. So all of these are different thought exercises to help you get from where you are and the current blinders that you probably have on of like, well, this is the offer, this is the best I can do, this is as far as we can go, et cetera. And get from there to what is something that would be just dramatically, almost from your current vantage point, unimaginably better. So let's do the 11-star
Okay.
experience exercise. And this is an idea that comes from Brian Chesky, one of the founders of Airbnb. And it's a thought exercise they go through. They ask themselves, okay, well, in the category we're operating, what's a 5-star experience? And we know that because it's a known quantity. right? So you could just map out and describe, okay, this is best in class for us right now. This is a 5-star experience. Like, okay, great. With that as a baseline, what would be an 11-star experience? Right? You really think about all the dimensions where you could stretch and extend. And the gap from 5 to 11 stars is so high. We're not saying what would a 6-star experience or a 7, it's like 11 stars. It's really extreme. So it's kind of an invitation to get a little bit wacky, a little bit wild, a little bit crazy. It's like, okay, a 5-star check-in experience at a hotel would be that they see you coming, and by virtue of facial recognition or whatever, they know it's you, and they greet you at the door. So what would an 11-star experience be? Maybe they surprise you and they have someone waiting for you at the airport, and they take you there in a helicopter, and they serve you, you can keep going on. And the framing of 11 stars is like, there's no pressure to operationalize this. You know that this is a fantasy. But in going through that exercise, you'll have a lot of kernels of good ideas. And you can say, okay, maybe the 11-star version is a little bit extreme. But if we were to then dial it back to 6 or 7 or 8 stars, maybe we could do that. Maybe we could do some really cool stuff here. So that's an example of, and there are other thought exercises as you mentioned in the book. But the whole point here is to get beyond the blinders of what you've just become accustomed to thinking about. Well, this is how we do it. This is best in class for where we are. And really expanding your thinking of what would constitute best in class, especially from the perspective of your customer, right? If you think about actually another great example of this is Tesla, right? So when you think about what people would think of as a 5-star driving experience, before Tesla came out with their current fleet of cars, you might say, well, it's a smooth ride, and 0 to 60 in no time flat, and the good air conditioning, good sound, heated seats, whatever. But it wouldn't have been on anyone's radar to say, well, I'd really like for this car to parallel park for me.
It seems
Right?
a little extreme.
It seems extreme.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point. Whatever you're going to start with is like, let's go really extreme. So for example, the car completely drives itself, which, they say that they're on the verge of getting to, but they've been saying that for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. So who knows? Right? But they've been working on that for a very long time. But let's start with that 11-star experience. Let's dial it way back and say, well, what if we could just get it to park? What if we can get it to come to you at 5 miles an hour from the other side of the parking lot? Right? Which is already like crazy, amazing, beyond the realm of what was possible when these cars came on the market. But it's kind of a process of like, think to the crazy, like Jetsons level fantasy, and then let's dial it back to like the first viable step, which is still ahead of what we can do now.
I'm thinking back to the first time I got a smartphone. I got it for like email and calendar and to-do lists. And then like a month or two in, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but a month or two in, I discovered GPS and maps. And I'm like, wait, this knows where I am. It can tell me where to go. Like, it was a world changer. It was something I hadn't asked for, but I was thrilled that it was there. And those are the types of things that make your product just that much better than the other people on the competition. Because the product I had before this, I think, was a Palm Pilot or something with a stylus, and you would, hunt and pack and type and do things like that.
I remember
And
those days.
yeah. That's where I got introduced to the game Bejeweled. But anyways, it's the match 3 game. Yeah, sidetrack. So yeah, but I didn't even expect, I was just getting an upgrade. I thought I was buying something in the same product, but I was actually buying something so much better than what I thought it was. And it delighted me. And I think those are the type of things that, what are those things that you can do? Now, this might get a little deep. You can't do everything all at once, right? Like, you can't add helicopter rides to your Airbnb transportation when you're just starting. So, is there, I feel bad asking for a quick overview of how to add these things to your existing product, but is there, I know it's in the book, but what would you say for somebody who's like, "Oh, I can't do everything, but I want to make my experience better." What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm gonna do the very fast version. This is
Yeah,
that,
the fast version. Yep.
but you start by just brainstorming a ton of ideas. And so let's say you put each of them on a Post-it note. So you've got like 15 different ideas.
Hmm.
Then you take a poster board and you divide it into 4 quadrants, right? So going up and down is going to be high cost and low cost, or high
Hmm.
effort, low effort, right? In other words, what's going to be really expensive for you to do, what's going to be
Hmm.
really easy for you to do.
Hmm.
And then left and right is high impact and low impact. And then you take all your ideas and you just put them wherever they belong on the board. And then there's a process for working around that board, right? You start with the stuff that is low cost, low effort, but high impact. And you want to do those right away. The stuff that's going to be low cost, but low impact, you want to kind of gradually implement them because in aggregate, they add up. You never want to do the stuff that's low impact, but high cost. But the real opportunity is the stuff that is high impact and high cost, because that's R&D. That's the stuff where you're not going to get a big lift right away. But, if you can figure it out, and maybe it takes you 6 months or a year or whatever it is, that's where you're going to find a real competitive advantage. So that's how you kind of work around the wheel of all your ideas.
Great. That was a very good 90-second explanation. I loved it. You're good at that. All right, so we're gonna wrap up a little bit. We just talked about the obvious offer. Next episode, we're gonna talk about one of the other levers to pull. So this will be a two-parter for you, for the people listening. Danny, I know you got some things coming up, and also you have some resources. You're like the treasure trove of resources on your website. So can you tell people what's coming up for you and where can they find more of your material?
Yeah, sure. And thank you. So you can always go to Mirasee, Mirasee.com. You can check out the book Effortless. It's on Amazon. It's like, I don't know, $5 on Kindle or something like that. It's not it's not some expensive course or something like that. We do have some cool resources if you want to check out. It's at, I believe the link is effortless.rocks/toolkit. And I haven't looked in a while. What do we have in there? We have the audiobook version of the entire book, plus a whole bunch of extra cool resources. So you're welcome to grab that if you're so inclined. But we've also got, as James, you alluded, we've got some really cool stuff coming out that we've been developing. And I'm very fortunate that when we do that, we have a lot of colleagues and partners who help us spread the word, including James. So if everyone who's listening to this, you want to know how you can get kind of some of our best cutting edge training, the best thing you can do is very carefully read every email that James sends you. And when you see one about me, click on the link and do what it says on the page.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a fan, and I resonate with the methods that Danny puts out, and we'll talk about this next episode, the Resonant Identity, like who he is and what he stands for. So yeah, anyways, that's my endorsement. Very bad with transitions
And
here,
open loop.
but
Yeah, that's a great open loop and cliffhanger. Join us again next week, everyone.
Next week, I have a part 2 for my my mastermind story too. So you'll get to hear part 2 for that as well. So we're gonna end there. Everybody, thanks so much for listening. I hope you got a lot about learning about how to make your offer effortless and got you some really cool ideas. And now it's time to put your mission in motion.